All right, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it's time for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm excited because we've got Sky Matsuhashi back in the booth tonight. We're going to be talking all about hand reading, and Sky's got a sale on this week where you can get 25% off a monthly membership at the Poker Forge, but it's only good this week. So the link will be in the show notes, and we'll get into a little more information about that. We'll introduce Sky Matsuhashi to our audience as if they don't know who he is already. But first, we got to start by thanking the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino because they're our fantastic sponsors. And what are they sponsoring, you ask? It's Rec Poker. We're a largely volunteer-based organization. Most of what we do here is free, so our sponsors are super important. But our premium members are also really important. We rely on their support to make all the magic happen around here. In fact, we've got one of our premium members here in the booth right now. I'm going to change up the order a little bit right now. Eric Anderson, you've been a premium member for a long time. One of the perks is joining us here on the forums edition of the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Why don't you share your info with Rec Poker Nation?
Hi, everybody. I'm E. Anderson at rec.poker.
Nice. There you go. So the premium membership is a great way to support the show and all we do at the website here. Our Wrecking Crew members are the ones that really make the magic happen. You get used to hearing my voice. I'm Jim Reed. I'm your host tonight. I've got the best freaking job in the world. And if you want to find out more about me and the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew. But just listen up because you're going to meet a couple of them right here, right now.
I'm Kim Kilroy. I'm PetVet33 in the home game, PetVet_33 on Twitter.
And I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Rabman50 just about everywhere.
So every Monday night we get together. We're playing in the free Play Money home game club over here. We're stealing each other's chips. We're talking about poker with some fun people from the poker world. This week, as I mentioned before, we're welcoming Sky Matsuhashi from the Poker Forge back on the show. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about bread and butter spots. This week, we're going to be talking about hand reading. Sky, these are two areas that are really at the top of your pyramid of expertise. I sort of feel like a lot of your material is based around getting people into bread and butter spots and then learning how to hand read more effectively. And it's something that I really, truly believe recreational players can spend a lot of time raising the floor on their abilities. Hand reading is something that you do in every hand of poker. It's crucial to value betting and bluffing. And, well, don't let me oversell it, Sky. Tell us a little bit about what's so important about hand reading and why you've made it a theme for this sale that you've got coming.
Yeah. Hand reading is the number one skill in poker. It helps you to make reads on your opponents and actually to play the player. We've all heard that term before. When you just play, you have Jack 10 suited, and all you think about is Jack 10 suited, and the flop is Ace King 5, and that's all you think about. You're not even like that's just first level thinking, right? There are so many other aspects to poker, and hand reading forces you to think about all of those. When you're doing hand reading, just as a quick primer, I guess, hand reading is putting your opponent on a pre-flop range of hands based on their actions and then narrowing that range through the streets. In order to really do that, you have to think about that exact player that you're playing. What was their open raise size? What position did they raise from? What are their general pre-flop raising tendencies? What have you seen them raise in the past? And so that helps you build that pre-flop range of hands. And on the flop, turn, and river, based on their bet sizing, their player tendencies, the actions that they make, you can now start to narrow that range. And the more narrow you get their range, the better read you have on their hand strength. And then you can really start exploiting them, either earning pots with bluffs or getting value out of them because you know that your hand just crushes their range, but they have a really strong range. You get max value out of those players. And one of the great things about hand reading, yes, in game, you're thinking about your opponent's range, you're making good reads and making good plays, but hand reading lets you really study your game afterwards and really improve those skills off of the felt. And that's a key aspect of poker, is not just playing, but studying and getting better, practicing those moves as you're doing like hand history reviews with Poker Tracker 4 or something. And then what you learn in those hand history reviews when you're doing hand reading, you take those strategies to the felt and continually work and improve your game with that hand reading.
So it's something that we do in every hand that we play. It's something we practice off the felt. it's obviously very relative and subjective based on your assumptions about the opponents and what their ranges might be and their the actions that they might take. Personally speaking, when I was learning poker, I used Equilab, which was the free comparison tool at pokerstrategy.com. We don't have a relationship with them. I like to tell people, go to pokerstrategy.com and download Equilab. It's a fantastic way to compare a hand versus hand, or a hand versus range, or range versus range. But it has a ceiling. A lot of, like, Poker Tracker has its own equity calculator and comparison tool. And I think most people agree that Flopzilla has really become the premier software for the exact kind of analysis that you're describing. Is that true? I mean, I know you use it a lot. It seems like it still kind of owns that place in the market. Is that true?
I believe it does. Flopzilla Pro is the one I use. When you get a Flopzilla license, Pro comes with it. Supposedly it's still in beta, but it's been Flopzilla Pro for like 2 or 3 years now. So that's what I use. And if there is a better one out there, I don't know about it, right? And I use this every single day with my students in my own studies and everything. And it makes it so easy to create somebody's range and then narrow it through the streets. You enter their range, your hand, the board cards, and it's so intuitive and easy to use. And for a good demonstration on how to use that software, if you go to smartpokerstudy.com/66 days of hand reading, just one word, 66 days of hand reading, that takes you to my YouTube playlist of videos where I did hand reading 66 days in a row, recorded it, posted it on YouTube. But just watch a couple of the videos. You'll see how Flopzilla Pro makes hand reading super easy. And you said earlier, Jim, anybody, even recreational players, can really stand to do a lot of hand reading and spend time learning that skill. But it really does take a lot of time to learn it. Like, I just now explained what hand reading is, so maybe you have kind of an intuitive, a quick understanding of it. But it takes a long time to develop an intuition for hand reading to where you can do it in game as you play. And then that's what, like, my 66 days of hand reading, that literally was the best thing I've ever done for my own poker game and my skills, recording one of those videos and posting it every single day for 66 days.
It's funny you should say that, because if folks are listening at home, I encourage you to go check out our own YouTube channel, /Rec Poker. The community is Rec Poker there at YouTube, because we release all these episodes on YouTube as well. And as soon as Sky mentioned the 66 days of hand reading, everyone on the panel started smiling and nodding. Eric raised his thumb, gave you a thumbs up, because it is a phenomenal tool, a phenomenal resource. I do coaching with our Rec Poker members, and I always tell people to go and check out that video series, because it's just such a crucial skill, and you lay it all out there so well for free on YouTube. Eric, did you want to add something there?
Well, I very rarely eat at my desk, but when I do eat at my desk, I watch 66 days of hand reading, and I'm on
wow,
63.
thank you very much.
Oh, you're almost there, Eric. You're almost there. So it is a fantastic series, and it's really, really valuable. And Sky's got a ton of other great stuff at the Smart Poker Study YouTube channel. So talk to me a bit about what you can find at the Poker Forge, where you're kind of taking this to the next level, and why people can, what people can learn that they can apply to their own studies and to their own play.
Yeah, in the Poker Forge, I have 9 different courses. The second course is what I call simply the hand reading course. I take you through every aspect of hand reading, and I can't remember, maybe there's like 22 different videos at like 6 or 7 hours of training just within that one course. And I really take you through every aspect, not just of the simple step-by-step build a range, narrow the range through the streets, but I teach you how to think about your opponent's ranges, what kind of information to take into account to build those ranges and then narrow the ranges. And then I also give you some really good strategies on how to practice hand reading in game while you're playing. And I'll give you and your audience right now a really good tip. In that hand reading course, and you could do this for yourself, I created ranges, like common ranges. Like, this is a 10% raising first in range. This is a 15. This is a 20% range, just on a piece of paper, right? If you have a list of ranges in front of you, you don't have to have Flopzilla Pro open while you play. And actually, most poker softwares, it's against their terms of service to keep Flopzilla Pro open as you play. But if you have on a piece of paper, like printout of all the different ranges, when your opponent open raises and you call out of the big blind, a non-bread and butter spot, like we talked last week, right? But when they open raise, you look at the ranges and say, okay, this range makes the most sense. I think my opponent is playing these hands right here. And you're actually looking at the set of ranges to see the hands. And then when the flop hits, you compare, this is their range, this is their board. Oh, it interacts very well. I should probably check fold. Or their range completely misses this board. I should be check raising or donk betting. Whatever it is. So I teach you how to do stuff, basic hand reading skills, but applying it in game. And it really does help you. It helps you to train, or it helps to train you to think about ranges, to actively put your opponents on ranges, and it helps you make better plays against them.
I love that. Rob?
I was just going to say, Sky's videos that he has available on YouTube for anybody to watch at any time for free has so much information about how to use Poker Tracker to range your opponents while you're playing using your HUD. And I want to encourage everybody to look at Sky's pop-ups, because Sky puts pop-ups on so that you got your normal HUD, but then if you go and click on, say, a CBET stat, it'll pop up all your post-flop stats on that player. So as you're narrowing his range, you can use those stats to even narrow it even further than you would just by the normal actions. So I think it's really, really beneficial for anybody to, as you're learning hand reading, and you can do this while you're studying your hand histories on Poker Tracker, go in and use those pop-ups and kind of see how they respond to C-bets, when they C-bet, when they don't C-bet, when they raise a C-bet. All of those types of stats are so important to really, really be able to narrow an opponent's range down. And Sky does a great job of explaining how all that works and putting it together on a YouTube video so even us mere mortals can make use of it.
Well, thank you, Rob. Yeah, you're right. And you hit upon a really common mistake that people make when they're hand reading. For example, you assign your opponent a range. And then you are the open raiser, let's say. You give them a calling range. On the flop, you C-bet, and then they called you. Maybe their fold to C-bet is 50%. So naturally, you would think, well, they fold to C-bets 50% of the time. They called. Let me just remove the bottom 50% of their range right here. But more importantly, what you need to do, like what you said, Rob, open up the pop-up and look specifically at their fold to C-bet stats. Maybe they were out of position just now. They're usually folding 80% of the time when out of position versus a C-bet. That's much different than that total 50% stat, right? Now, I know it's kind of like getting into the weeds and getting into the minutia, but the more you think about this stuff, the more exacting you try to be in your hand reading while you're studying off the felt, the better you're going to become at it in game as well. And just knowing that they fold 50% in general, but out of position, they fold 80%. That's going to help you narrow their range even more because they decided to call right there. So that's a good point, Rob. Thank you.
One of the problems I think a lot of recreational players have with hand reading in particular is that it's hard to make assumptions about unknown players. So let's say you sit down at the table and you don't know anyone there. It's the first orbit. How should we kind of approach the concept of hand reading? Because starting right from pre-flop, I mean, that's you really have to just. I want you to give me a silver bullet here, Sky, but I know the answer is going to be just make as good an assumption as you can about their pre-flop range and go from there.
Yeah. One of the things, the word assumption, I prefer when it comes to hand reading. I prefer to use the word presumption. Presumption means you're making assumptions, but it's based on some kind of evidence, right? There's something going on that you can kind of presume that they're doing what you think they're doing for whatever reason, right? Now, you are kind of making assumptions, especially if you know nothing about the player. But let's just imagine you're playing live at a cash game. Everybody buys in for 100 big blinds, but all of a sudden this dude comes in and he buys in for 20 big blinds. He buys in for $40 at a 1-2 no limit hold'em cash game. What do you automatically think of him? Like, does anybody have an answer to that? What is the 20 big blind buyer? What kind of player is he?
We call them short stackers where I come from.
Short stacker, yeah. Is he probably going to be a strong or a weak player?
typically less experienced. Rob, is that your take as well?
Yeah. Typically less experienced, looking to try to double up real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are they necessarily, so Rob, are they necessarily these less experienced players? Are they necessarily going to be on the aggressive side or the passive side with their decisions?
I believe they'll probably on the passive side most of the time until they have a really big hand, and then it's all balls to the wall.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. So even though this player just sat at the table, that basic first action of buying in for 20 big blinds, you already have somebody. You could be absolutely wrong. He could be the best player at the table, and he's going to come and crush all of you. But you got to kind of use what you know about the player pool in general to make a read right now on what this guy is doing, and then go with that read. Now, further on, 20, 30 hands in, 2 or 3 rounds at the table, you're going to learn some things. You can adjust your read on him. Maybe he bought in for 20 big blinds, but then without really making a big show of it, maybe he whips out another $200 and puts it on the table or something, right? Like he buys in short stacked on purpose. Full stacks up later on, and you don't really notice because you're paying attention to other things, right? And he knows what he's doing. So you make your presumptions based on what you know about the player pool, and then over time you kind of refine those reads on your various opponents.
And what other kind of, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but what other kinds of keys can we get from people's play or the mechanics of their play or anything like that that might help us put them in a box? Like for me, one is always, if someone's open limping, then that's gonna shape that's gonna sort of color what I think of their range as being. They're gonna be wider and more passive than a lot of other players. What are some other kind of ways like that you can notice things about players, maybe put them in a box later?
Yeah, open limping is great. People who do a ton of raising when it first, like raise first in when it folds to them, or you see other players like 3-betting with Jack 10 suited. Those are loose aggressive players. They know that aggression wins and they try to stick it in your face, right? So you can notice that. Another thing is, whether you're playing live or online, try to ditch the distractions. Don't watch my 66 days of hand reading videos on YouTube while you're playing, right? Don't watch ESPN. Don't do anything. Pay attention to the action. When you fold your hand and then you're watching the action and you see all of a sudden your opponent gets to the river with ace-6 offsuit in a 3-bet pot, replay the action of the hand. Oh, he open raised. The other guy made it 12 big blinds and he called with ace-6 offsuit and then he flopped just second pair. And he called flop and turn. What's happening here? Like seeing those showdowns and then remembering the action of the hand because you weren't distracted by ESPN or YouTube videos or anything. Replay the action of the hand, and that'll give you a really good idea of what kind of player you're up against.
So I'm going to take another tangent question here. So then it feels like paying attention to your opponents is super important. When you're online, a HUD's going to take care of a lot of that for you. Rob Washam's actually really good. He and I have talked about this before at paying attention live, taking notes live, and really kind of recording the session, recording the information that's relevant. Sky, how do you take notes when you're playing live? Do you just try and remember for this session? I'm going to kind of remember. Okay, no, you're a little more meticulous than that. Please share some details.
Yeah, I have I feel that I have a terrible short-term memory. So I have Evernote on my phone, and it's been a long time since I played live, but this is what I used to do playing live. Evernote on my phone. So if everybody who knows Evernote, it looks like a Word document, right? You just have lines, you can type stuff in. I have seat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 9. Whatever seat I'm in, seat 8, let's say, I just type the word hero. That's me. I know what's going on. As soon as I make a read on a player in whatever seat they're in, especially if I know their name, right? So I see Rob, he's over there on seat 1. I see that he gets to the river after 3-betting pre-flop to 12 big blinds with ace-6 offsuit, right? I'm going to make a note of whatever the read is. I'm not going to say, Rob 3-bet with ace-6 offsuit. That's not good enough, right? Maybe Rob had 3-bet versus a weak player at the table to a large 12 big blinds, and then he c-bet bluff, flop, and turn with a backdoor nut flush draw, right? He hit it on the river, and then he bet 150%. There's going to be specific notes I can make on Rob's play that's going to help me play against him in the future. But I'll just, have my phone, and I'll act like maybe I'm texting or something, right? I'm not going to be looking at Rob and the typing stuff in and look at him again. I'm going to be kind of inconspicuous or whatever the word is. Yeah, I'm going to hide my actions, or I don't want everyone to know that I'm taking notes on Rob. Definitely don't want Rob to know that I'm taking notes on him, right? Sometimes I'll get up from the table and, go to the restroom and then, make notes or something. But whatever notes I make, it's basically a read on how I think they play. And here's something I do for my notes online, and I did it live. Any instructions to myself, I type in all caps. So, for example, I know that Rob, he 3-bet big with ace-6 offsuit. Maybe the next time a weak player open raises, and then Rob, or so the note I might say to myself in all caps, I'll type in challenge Rob's big 3-bets versus fish. So maybe I'm in the big blind. This weak player open raises. Rob, a few hands later, 3-bets again to 12 big blinds. Well, that's my opportunity. I read that note and it's telling me to do something against Rob. Boom, I'm going to make it 30 big blinds right now. I don't care if I have 9-4 offsuit. I know Rob's weakness. He is targeting this fish with his 3-bets. I'm going to exploit Rob's exploit of that fish. And, it might fail, but quite often it works.
I love that. Yeah, Eric has a question I'm going to get to in just a second. I do the same thing. I started using Trello on my phone for that because it has cards that you can move in and out of rotation. So I play with a regular cash group out here. And depending on who's at my table that night, I could just shuffle the cards up into the right order, and I have all the past notes from those players.
That is smart.
Right
that's with the regular group. That's a good thing. Yeah,
regular group. Yeah, that makes a big difference. Eric, you had something.
That's a great idea. Well, you brought up in this last discussion a really great thing about hand rating that it took me a long time to realize is just because you seen Rob go to showdown with ace-6 off, it was because he was against the drunk bachelor party guys. It wasn't because he was against you. And it took me a long time to realize that he's just not playing ace-6 off all the time. He's actually playing different against each player. And that it really took me a long time to realize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good thing when you do realize it. Bam, now Rob is a shark at the table. This dude knows what he's doing. He's targeting the fish. I need to be careful when I'm playing against him. But at the same time, like I said earlier, I can now exploit his exploits of those fish. So it's a really good thing to pick up on.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Poker Tracker 4 is that you can configure some of the stats to only reflect actions taken against you. Like you can change it so that you can see the hands that a player 3-bets versus you versus the rest of the population. And sometimes you can, learn a little something, again, against very regular opponents. So I feel like we're really just kind of skimming the surface here, Sky. Hand reading is such a pervasive element of the poker world. How much, so we're obviously always thinking about it when we're in the hand. And when we're not in the hand, but we're at the table, we should be paying attention and taking notes and sort of going through the practice hand reading anyway. And then when we're off the felt, we should be doing exercises and sort of like practicing with hands from our own hand history or hands from a forum post or something like that. I'll encourage listeners, if you want to give yourself a little baby step into this, take a hand that you played in Poker Tracker like a year ago. Don't display the cards up and pull it up and watch that hand over. You'll give yourself an advantage because you already kind of know approximately what your opening range might be. So it'll be easier for you to go through this hand reading exercise on yourself because you don't actually remember what the hand was, but you can still practice kind of on your own hands. Sky, you've got like a workbook as well that people can use off the felt. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the benefit of that active study and why that's so helpful to learning the skill?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's a bonus when you join this week at 25% off the monthly price at the pokerforge.com. You also get the online poker hand reading workbook as a bonus. And what it does is it teaches you the basic hand reading steps. There's a few video links within the workbook you can click on and watch me do the hand reading. But the workbook is going to take you through all the different steps and give you different assignments and and I guess tests or quizzes, I guess I should say. But I have you create ranges for all of your opponent's common percentages, right? So you're going to create open raising ranges for 10, 15, 20, 25% that you think your opponent's open raise, calling ranges for those same percentages, 3-bets and calling 3-bets. And that's going to force you already to think about your opponents and what they're playing, because my opponents, I mean, I play on Ignition Poker. You might be somebody who plays on Poker Stars or GG Poker or whatever. You have a totally different player pool, right? They're going to play slightly different than my opponents will. So the book's going to force you to think about your own opponents and build ranges, also narrow those ranges through the streets with a ton of exercises, and actually not just exercises, but answer keys too. And you might think, Sky, how can you have an answer key for a workbook when you're going through your own hands? And I don't know, when I created the workbook, I don't know what hands you're looking at, with the answer key. But a lot of the questions force you just think about combos and ranges and percentages and things. And the answer key kind of keeps you on track and guided through all those various exercises. And I think it's a great product. It's the kind of thing I wish I had when I first started learning hand reading.
Yeah, I bet. I say this on the show pretty often, but I learned poker in a silo. I was a lurker. I just watched the free videos and listened to podcasts, did a lot of pen and paper work myself. Mm-hmm. And I just wish I'd taken the plunge earlier, gotten involved with a group like Rec Poker or the Poker Forge. Not because I didn't learn a lot on my own, but I would have learned it so much faster. I could have saved so many steps and lessons, and people could have just shown me the way for a lot of this stuff. And I wish I had. So folks, we've talked about some great tools today: Poker Tracker, Flopzilla, Equilab. If folks go to rec.poker/resources, you can find links to all sorts of great training tools like this. Some are free, some are paid. I won't put you in a box here, Sky, but personally, I think Poker Tracker 4 for a one-time cost of about $100 and Flopzilla for a one-time cost of about $25 or so are pretty much the best investments you can make as a thinking, cerebral poker player trying to improve. Are there any other really must-have sort of top tier tools that you can think of off the top of your head?
Nope, that's it. Just those two things, and the YouTube app on your phone or on your computer.
Yeah.
Watch a ton of free YouTube videos. And that's if you're watching videos and just going through Poker Tracker for reviewing hands and then using Flopzilla for hand reading, really that's all you need to really turn yourself into a good player. Now, of course, like you said, getting involved in some kind of a group, forums, rec.poker, Poker Forge, Smart Poker Study, whatever it is, that's going to help you learn more. But I was like you for many, many years, just teaching myself poker, reading books, watching videos and stuff. But when you start using those tools and all those free videos on YouTube, that's when you can really start propelling yourself forward just by yourself.
Eric, any parting thoughts? I've got one more, but what do you have on your mind first?
Just a great thing. Another thing about Flopzilla is it's connected to GTO Plus. It's a solver.
Yes.
It is an extra charge, but once you get tired of Flopzilla, you can always upgrade, and you have all your ranges and everything already. So it's
nice. That's
nice.
Yeah, GTO Plus is a great solver, pretty good entry point for the market too, and can handle a lot of what you'd want to. So, listen. Sky Matsuhashi has been a friend of the Rec Poker podcast and the community here for a long time. Sky, you've been one of our learning partners for a long time, sharing your wisdom with our premium members. And so, folks, if you are you might not be listening to this live. The sale that Sky's got going off kicks off on April 17th, and it's only available this week. But if you're listening to this and you're a week behind or so, you can always go to the Rec Poker shop. There's a category there, Learning with Partners, and you'll see Sky's The Poker Forge right up on that top row, along with some of our other fantastic partners. And if you click on the link for Sky's Poker Forge there, you can see some more information. You get a discount code. You get a discount if you purchased it through our link there. And if you use the code RECPOKER at checkout, that's another great way to tell Sky that we sent you, which helps out both of our organizations. I would appreciate that. Sky will also put the link for this sale in the show notes here. Let's just tell our folks again, it's 25% off monthly membership. Plus you get the online poker hand reading workbook free with their sign up. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yep. And then the workbook on top of that hand reading course that we have in the Poker Forge, you're going to become a hand reading expert, not in no time. Like I said before, it takes a lot of time doing this work, right? But really, if you're willing to put in just 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes doing one hand reading exercise with a hand from your database that went to Showdown. Oh, a really good tip. Choose hands when you're doing hand reading work. Choose hands in an area that you really find difficult. Maybe you're losing a ton of money when you're 3-betting out of the big blind. Well, find a lot of hands that went to Showdown where you 3-bet out of the big blind, or calling out of the big blind, or open raising in the MP and then calling a 3-bet. Find those hands in your database, hand read those over and over again. You're kind of doing double duty, teaching yourself hand reading while trying to learn better strategies for all those tough spots that you're in.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. Well, we should always know, as important it is to raise our A game, raising our C game is probably even more important. So we should always be working on this kind of low-hanging fruit and increasing our ROI as best as we can. Eric says hand read and fix leaks. Yep. That's a potent 1-2 punch. All right. Well, then, Sky, folks can go to thepokerforge.com. They can find you on Twitter at Smart Poker Study. They can check out the YouTube channel at Smart Poker Study. I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show and sharing this information with us. Folks, I'll put all those links in the show notes. And other than that, I just want to thank Sky Matsuhashi, Eric Anderson, Rob Washington, and Kim Kilroy. Of course, the wonderful people at Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. But mostly you, the listeners. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you next week.